My brother ruined my life by fabricating evidence of my affairs. But after 6 years, the truth finally came out. My high school love, Sarah, was 45 years old, and I, a 45-year-old guy, was her spouse. Together, we have 4 daughters. Ashley, 18, Olivia, 21, Madison, 22, and Lauren, 24. We fell in love when we were both 14 years old during our freshman year. I can still clearly recall our English class when I first met her. I assisted her in picking up the books she had dropped. It was our reality, but it seemed like something from an adolescent film. From the first time they laid eyes on Sarah, my parents, David, 68, and Helen, 66, fell in love. She was their unborn daughter. Mom would teach her our family dishes and invite her over for Sunday dinners, even when we were first dating. Dad gave us relationship advice all the time and treated her like his own daughter. He would say things like, "Think before making big decisions," and "Communication is key." Our relationship was shaped by those statements for many years. The unique memories that each of my girls has make this parting much more agonizing. Our oldest, Lauren, was my shadow when she was younger. In the park close to our house, I spent numerous weekends teaching her how to ride a bike. Like the older children, she was determined to learn without the use of training wheels. Her delighted smile brightened the entire neighborhood when she eventually succeeded, as she had envisioned. She is now a prosperous lawyer. When Madison, our artistic soul, was 15, she converted our garage into her art studio. I constructed an easel and arranged her materials to assist her in setting it up. That area became her haven after we transformed it over the course of a summer. Our living room is adorned with a family portrait that she painted. It was her first significant composition. I wonder if it's still there. The best part of my weekends was watching Olivia play soccer, until I had to miss them all. I never missed a single one before then. When my daughter contacted me at work to tell me that she had made the varsity team as a freshman, I could still hear her happy voice. She learned how to play from me, and we practiced penalty kicks in the backyard for hours. At games, she constantly claimed that I was her fortunate charm. My tiny coding partner was Ashley, my tech-savvy youngest child. When she was 10 years old, we worked together to build her first computer. We would work on basic games late into the night since she was so eager to learn programming. She came up with the concept for an app that would use puzzles to teach children math. When everything collapsed, we were halfway through the development process. Our first few years of marriage were both magical and difficult. During our senior year, we were both pleased and afraid to learn that Sarah was expecting Lauren. I chose to work at a nearby manufacturing company while attending night classes rather than enrolling in college right away. While raising Lauren, Sarah worked part-time to complete her degree. Despite barely making ends meet and living in a small, one-bedroom apartment, we were content. We learned collaboration and resilience over those years. But my 43-year-old younger brother, Daniel, was always a specter over our joy. I was too trusting to notice the signs properly, but they were there from the start. Daniel would make excuses to be around us, even in high school. He would offer to drop Sarah off at our favorite cafe on date nights, or offer to drive her home while I had basketball practice. I now understand that Daniel had a pattern of compulsive behavior. He followed his middle school teacher to the grocery store and sent her letters since he was obsessed with her. Before Sarah, it was dismissed by our parents as a harmless crush. He developed an obsession with a girl in his high school class, making up intricate tales about their connection when they had hardly spoken. It was written off as teenage drama once more. When Sarah and I got engaged, it was the first big warning sign. Daniel became furious rather than merely disapproving. When he arrived at Sarah's place of employment, he created a commotion that nearly cost her her job. He was yelling that I had taken her away from him and that they were destined to be together. Sarah was afraid. She told me everything right away, and that's when I started thinking about severing my relationship with Daniel. However, my parents stepped in. They persuaded us that Daniel needed assistance rather than rejection. We attended family therapy sessions for months. Daniel expressed regret, claimed to have changed, and seemed to accept our relationship, although I now question whether it was all part of his long-term plan. He even gave a heartfelt speech during our wedding. Daniel became more and more involved in our life over time. He positioned himself as our children's favorite uncle, helped me land a job at his company, and started showing up at family get-togethers all the time. He was especially close to Madison and Lauren, frequently bringing them out and purchasing them pricey presents. I assumed he was simply making amends for his previous actions by being a good uncle. In hindsight, I can see how he methodically gained the trust of each member of my family. He supported Sarah's professional networking, helped my parents with their money, and was always ready to provide a helping hand. In contrast to my hectic schedule and frequent business travels, he positioned himself as the dependable, stable sibling. I needed the business travels to advance in my job, but Daniel took advantage of me. Some of the things he would say to Sarah were, "Mike's always away, but I'm here if you need anything." While I was away, he offered to assist with school functions and home repairs. I was appreciative of his assistance at the moment. I can now understand that it was all a part of his deception. Everything broke apart 6 years ago. I had been at our company's West Coast office for a week on business. It was a presentation for a big project that might get me promoted. I missed Sarah and the girls so much that I contacted her every night to tell her everything that had happened during the day. I also participated in video conferences with the girls, listening to Madison's most recent art project ideas and providing remote assistance with Ashley's math assignments. My whole family was in our living room when I got home. Daniel was there, appearing serious, while Sarah and the girls were crying. Tension was pervasive in the air. Sarah exclaimed, "How could you do this to us?" with a look of fury in her eyes that I will never forget. Daniel had meticulously planned his attack. He pulled out a folder that seemed to be unquestionable proof of my adultery. Intimate text exchanges, hotel receipts, and even pictures of me entering a hotel with another woman were all there. He asserted that the woman was a coworker who, feeling guilty, had told him everything. The images were modified with skill. Later, I found out that they were staged to appear suspicious and were taken at official business meetings. Although the texts were entirely false, they contained information about my travel and work schedule that could only have been known by someone with insider knowledge. Daniel had made things appear genuine by using his position at our organization. I made a valiant effort to protect myself, but long before I entered that room, Daniel had turned everyone against me. He had been subtly hinting at my odd behavior to Sarah for weeks. My daughters had been persuaded by him that I was behaving differently. He had even expressed his concern about my decisions to my parents. I'm still troubled by the nightmare of the next several hours. Lauren, who had always been my strongest supporter, felt that she would never forgive me and hurled her house key at me. Even though Madison was crying so much that she was having trouble speaking, her words, "I hate you," were audible. My daughter Olivia, who used to race to me after every soccer match, was unable to even look at me. Ashley, who was only 12 at the time, turned to Sarah and questioned, "Why did Daddy do this to us?" The most agonizing response was probably from my parents. Dad, who had taught me everything I needed to know to be a decent spouse and father, and who had always been proud of me, looked at me with utter disgust. His statement, "No son of mine would do this to his family," is still ringing in my mind. You would end this divorce quickly and amicably if you still had any dignity. That evening, I was expelled with only a bag of clothing. In the weeks that followed, I made frantic efforts to establish my innocence. I spent almost all of my savings on hiring 3 different private investigators. After weeks of searching for the supposed other woman, the first private investigator found that she had moved to a different state. Despite identifying several discrepancies, the second investigator was unable to demonstrate that the hotel invoices were fakes. In fact, the third PI nearly discovered Daniel's manipulation before abruptly and mysteriously abandoning the case. Daniel had threatened his family, I found out later. The divorce process was harsh and swift. Sarah was furious and distraught and didn't want to interact with me. My daughters blocked my social media accounts and phone number. I only made contact through attorneys. I lost everything in 6 months, including my work, most of my friends, my home, and my family. At the office, Daniel had been deliberately spreading accusations that I had a history of having inappropriate connections with coworkers. The stigma followed me, and clients began asking not to work with me. Even though nothing was formal, I started again after moving to a little apartment across town. The isolation was debilitating. Sometimes, all I wanted was a glimpse of my girls, so I would sit in my car outside my former home. Every milestone I missed was like a stab to my heart. I couldn't get close, so I watched Lauren's law school graduation from the parking lot. I sent Madison an anonymous purchase of her favorite piece from her first art show. I cheered alone in my flat, while watching Olivia's college soccer championships on the internet. I learned about Ashley's successes in the science fair from the local newspaper. However, nothing could have prepared me for the agony of Lauren's wedding. Through a social media post from a common acquaintance, I became aware of it. I lost my role in my moment when I saw Daniel escorting my daughter down the aisle in the pictures. I was in a dark place all day, thinking about things I'm not proud of. At that point, I picked up my cat, Max, from the neighborhood shelter. To be honest, he saved my life more than once, and he needed someone just as much as I did. My only means of escape became work. I shifted departments, switched companies, and threw myself fully into my job. I received 2 promotions, but without my family to celebrate with, accomplishment felt meaningless. My background was unknown to the new employer, yet I was never able to build strong bonds with my coworkers. How do you justify not talking about your family, eating lunch by yourself, or avoiding office parties? Over the years, I made a few unsuccessful attempts at dating. I was never sure how to respond to the first question, which was always about family. How can you explain to someone that your children despise you, that your brother methodically ruined your life, and that your whole family thinks you're a cheater? Most first dates ended without a second date. Every holiday served as a reminder of my losses. Thanksgiving meant consuming microwave meals alone. Christmas was spent drinking too much and viewing old home videos. My girls' and my own birthdays were the worst. Because I couldn't stand to see the unopened presents in my apartment, I continued to buy them presents each year and kept them in a storage unit. Then, everything changed 3 days ago. An unidentified number called me. My mother was crying. Although she refused to provide anything over the phone, she said that they had learned the truth about Daniel's deceit. She pleaded with me to meet with them, stating that everyone wanted to make amends and was remorseful. Feeling numb, I hung up. 6 years. 6 years of loneliness, suffering, and memories lost. My daughters spent 6 years growing up without their father. Daniel lived the life he had stolen from me for 6 years. That cannot be resolved by a simple apology. I've made contact with a legal practice that focuses on defamation and family law disputes. The attorney thinks we may have a good case, particularly if my family now has proof of Daniel's dishonesty. Reconciliation is not something I'm interested in. Justice is what I desire. I want Daniel to be held legally responsible for ruining my life. Some may believe that I'm being too harsh, that my family should forgive me. Daniel didn't simply betray my confidence, though. My whole life was methodically ruined by him. He poisoned my girls against me, took away my fatherly position, and robbed me of years I will never get back. How can you forgive someone who denied you the opportunity to watch your kids grow up, who caused you to miss the wedding of your daughter, who deliberately and methodically turned your whole family against you? I'm meeting with the attorneys tomorrow to go over our alternatives. My mom asked for a meeting, but I haven't replied yet. Although I have mixed feelings about it, I would like to know how they found the truth. The harm has been done. I'll provide an update as soon as I learn more. I have to prioritize the legal issues and preserve my own emotional well-being throughout this time. Update 1. My parents just presented me with startling proof at my meeting with my legal team. These are the events of the past 2 days. It was eye-opening to meet with my lawyers. They clarified that, based on the information my parents gave, Daniel might be charged with several crimes. My mother gave me a big folder with the original, unaltered pictures, which make it obvious how Daniel altered them, along with bank statements demonstrating payments for fabricating hotel receipts. They also found email exchanges between Daniel and a professional photo editing firm. During a drunken confrontation with Sarah last week, the truth was revealed in a surprising way. By declaring he didn't design all of this simply to lose her, Daniel unintentionally made a mistake. Sarah began investigating after hearing this message and discovered a hidden email account on their shared computer. Everything was in the emails: correspondence with several individuals he hired to assist him, complete records of his 6-year plan to ruin my life, and even early drafts of the fictitious texts he wrote. Significant progress has been made in the police investigation. Daniel's co-conspirators, including the friend who assisted in making fictitious hotel reservations and the photo editor, have previously been interviewed. By testifying against Daniel, these people are now assisting the authorities in the hopes of avoiding being charged themselves. Daniel's scrupulous record-keeping is especially unsettling. On his laptop, Sarah found a password-protected journal, which she gave to my lawyers. He started planning even before my marriage to Sarah. According to the journal, he spent a lot of time writing about waiting for the right time to carry out his plan. After learning that Daniel intimidated other coworkers and utilized company resources to falsify proof in order to support his lies, my former company opened an internal inquiry. Compensation for wrongful firing is being seriously discussed, and the HR department is getting ready to issue a formal apology. The evidence is growing. Experts in forensics discovered erased documents that demonstrated he had attempted similar schemes twice previously, but had not carried them out correctly. The degree of forethought is astounding. Sarah is completely assisting investigators and has filed for divorce from Daniel. The worst thing has been discovering how he took advantage of my daughters. His journal entries describe how he poisoned them against me in a methodical manner. He would deliberately sow doubts, misrepresent my statements, and fabricate circumstances to cast me in a negative light. One of Ashley's pals was even paid by him to say they had seen me with another woman. More evidence was found during today's police search of Daniel's office. They discovered USB disks with backup copies of his falsified evidence, several burner phones, and more counterfeit documents he hadn't yet utilized. In order to keep up his network of falsehoods, they also found a list of the persons he was blackmailing. Considering the severity and length of his offenses, my attorneys are certain that they will seek the harshest punishments possible. According to them, Daniel might be sentenced to up to 15 years in prison and could be awarded millions of dollars in civil damages. They have recommended I forego all communication with my family for the time being, stating that everything must go through the appropriate legal procedures. Another victim has been identified during the investigation. Daniel planned a similar plot against his college roommate and the roommate's girlfriend 20 years earlier. This former victim got in touch with my attorneys to tell his experience after learning about my case. I'm continuing to concentrate on the court case rather than any possible family reconciliation. We're filing the civil complaint tomorrow, and the grand jury hearing is next week. Now, it's important to make sure Daniel bears the full repercussions of his conduct. When there are noteworthy developments in the court case, I'll provide an update. Update 2. The legal process is moving more quickly than anticipated. I need to share a few significant changes that have happened since my last report. Daniel was taken into custody at his place of employment yesterday morning. He was overheard making calls about erasing evidence, which an employee immediately reported to the police and the company's security. He attempted to remove files from his work computer as he was being arrested, but everything had already been secured by the IT department. His response to being caught was telling. He remarked, "She was supposed to be mine anyway," without refuting anything. Today, the grand jury indictment was delivered. They returned their decision in less than 2 hours since the evidence was so strong. In her 20 years of experience, the prosecutor described it as one of the most blatant instances of planned hatred she has ever witnessed. Daniel's actual character eventually came to light during police questioning. He sobbed uncontrollably and disclosed more information about his obsession. He had apparently been surreptitiously filming Sarah for years, gathering thousands of hours of video from covert cameras in their home. This is being handled by the police as a distinct criminal surveillance case. An even more alarming discovery came from the company's internal investigation. Daniel had been embezzling money to finance his plan. He created fictitious vendor accounts and had been embezzling money for years to cover the costs of the different individuals he employed to assist in fabricating the evidence against me. Separate charges are now being pressed by the firm. There have been conflicting responses from my daughters to these disclosures. Lauren has been going over all the evidence because she is a lawyer. We spoke directly for the first time in 6 years when she called me today. At first, she was unable to talk through her emotions. When she was able to speak, she described how Daniel had played on everyone's anxieties and vulnerabilities in a unique way. Madison found that artwork Daniel had offered to help sell was actually stashed away in a storage facility he rented to keep her financially reliant on him. He had been taking her work and lying to her about it. She is pursuing separate theft accusations. Olivia discovered tapes of Daniel paying her college soccer coach to bench her during crucial matches that I might have attended. He wanted to make sure that I couldn't use sports to get back in touch with her. The NCAA is currently investigating the matter on its own. Ashley's admission was the most devastating. She discovered journal entries in which Daniel described how, prior to everything collapsing, he purposely ruined the coding project we were working on, knowing how important that shared interest was to our relationship. He had paid someone to hack and contaminate our work. Additional evidence has been discovered during Sarah's divorce procedures. According to their joint tax forms, he had been concealing substantial assets, including real estate bought under false pretenses, even before our divorce. The forensic accountants were able to track down money transactions to offshore accounts. The extent of Daniel's deceit has crushed my parents. When Dad found out about the concealed cameras in their home, he also suffered a little heart attack. Daniel had been watching every member of the family, gathering information that he could use to control them. He kept records on everyone's vulnerabilities, secrets, and intimate moments. Today, the report from the criminal psychologist was made public. According to the report, Daniel has one of the worst cases of obsessive personality disorder and psychopathic tendencies they have ever seen. According to his notebooks, he carefully planned every aspect of the devastation of my life, viewing it as an art form. Victims from the past have kept coming forward. Similar methods from Daniel's background have been reported by 2 other families, though they are not as complex as what he did to me. These incidents, which date back to his time in college, demonstrate a distinct pattern of worsening conduct. Given the evidence that Daniel had established a tiny network of blackmailed people who assisted him in maintaining his deceit, the prosecutor is now attempting to bring additional organized crime charges against him. Some were people he had financially compromised, and others were professionals he had spied on. I've kept my distance from efforts at family reconciliation in favor of assisting in the development of the most compelling legal argument. My attorneys claim that with the overwhelming amount of evidence, Daniel's conviction is all but certain. Now, their attention is on making sure he gets the harshest punishment imaginable. Although the tale has garnered media interest, I have turned down every invitation to be interviewed. I'm still focused on pursuing justice within the judicial system rather than going public. Nevertheless, a number of Daniel's accomplices have begun speaking with reporters, exposing the entire scope of his network of deception. Next week, following the preliminary hearing, I'll provide another update. I'm currently preparing for what is expected to be a historic case in criminal justice and family law with my legal team. Final update. The conclusions of the preliminary hearing are more important than anyone could have predicted. I wanted to hold off on sharing this update until everything was finalized. Although Daniel entered a guilty plea to all charges, the events in the courtroom were surprising. Against the advice of his attorney, he insisted on making a public statement. He described his entire plan for 45 minutes, not with regret, but with a sickening sense of pride. He expressed no remorse, calling it his masterpiece of revenge. The judge's response was extraordinary. She disregarded the usual sentence criteria after hearing Daniel's statement, pointing to his pathological pride and obvious determination to commit another crime. In order to run each count consecutively rather than concurrently, she imposed the maximum penalty. Daniel will be imprisoned for 25 years, with no chance of release for 18 of those years. Daniel provided fresh details about additional victims throughout his statement, going beyond the incidents we were already aware of. In other states, he had tried similar tactics against 3 other families. His crimes may result in federal prosecution, according to the FBI's interstate investigation. His offshore accounts were the most startling discovery. He had been operating a consulting business for other compulsive people, teaching them how to ruin relationships and families. The forensic accountants found out he had customers in several different nations. Now, Interpol is involved. In her testimony, Sarah described discovering a secret chamber in their basement that was stocked with monitors and monitoring gear. In addition to monitoring their home, he had set up cameras in my office, apartment, and even my vehicle. It was military-grade surveillance technology, according to the technical expert who inspected the arrangement. Ashley, my youngest daughter, made significant progress in her analysis of Daniel's computer systems. She discovered encrypted files using her coding expertise, demonstrating that he had been preparing to grow his scam. He had meticulous records on the families of my coworkers, ready to ruin several relationships at once if I ever came close to establishing my innocence. The company's security mechanisms were completely redesigned as a result of their analysis. They found that Daniel had used persuasion and extortion to undermine almost every department. In his own testimony, the CEO described discovering proof that Daniel had been selling company secrets to finance his complex schemes. As an attorney, Lauren has been assisting the prosecution in constructing cases for Daniel's other victims. She discovered a trend that went all the way back to his high school years. He had spent more than 25 years honing his craft. He had developed a network of enablers during his life, according to her inquiry. Betrayal's Shadow, an exhibition at Madison's Art Gallery, showcased pieces she produced while dealing with this experience. She openly challenged a number of Daniel's collaborators who were there at the event. Without their knowledge, video recordings of their confessions served as proof for further charges. Olivia found out that Daniel had been following her college friends, gathering damaging material to keep them quiet. She is currently developing procedures to stop similar manipulative schemes in college athletics by collaborating with school security across the country. Our family's psychological effects have resulted in an unforeseen development. Numerous prestigious colleges are examining the case as an illustration of persistent psychological manipulation. In order to improve detection and prevention tactics for incidents like this one, research teams are examining Daniel's techniques. A support group for families impacted by pathological liars and manipulators has been established by my parents. They have discovered 5 further instances of Daniel interfering in the lives of other families, some of which go back decades, thanks to this network. Due to these disclosures, a number of cold cases involving questionable family splits have been reopened. The judge combined compensatory and punitive penalties and sentenced Daniel to pay $12 million in reparations. The forensic accountants discovered that he had accumulated more than $20 million from corporate espionage and consulting, all of which have been confiscated. In the future, I have turned down every attempt at reconciliation from my relatives. The years lost are irreparable, and the damage is too great. I'm concentrating on assisting in the construction of safeguards to stop similar exploitation from happening to others. Daniel's law is now being considered by a number of state legislatures to strengthen the penalty for planned family destruction. I keep my anonymity intact, even though the story has garnered international attention. Rather, I'm developing tools to identify patterns of systematic familial manipulation in collaboration with cybersecurity professionals. Leading the technical development, Ashley is transforming our misery into something that could potentially benefit others. My last update will be this one. Although justice has been done, some wounds never completely go away. I'm going about my life with the intention of keeping others from going through what our family did. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.